Commander Vrisk Katal ducked as another explosion shook the hull of the diplomatic vessel. Smoke filled the corridor as emergency lights pulsed crimson against polished metal walls. Her exoskeleton scraped against the bulkhead as she tried to make sense of the chaos around her. The Mirazil ambush had come without warning. One moment she'd been escorting the human diplomat Deckard Reed to the peace conference on Tannhäuser Station. The next, their ship was being torn apart by plasma weapons that shouldn't have made it past their shields. "Ambassador Reed," she called out, her multifaceted eyes struggling to penetrate the thickening smoke. "Where are you?" No answer. Only the wail of the ship's dying systems. Vrisk cursed in her native tongue. The collective council would have her gills if she lost the human. She'd been specifically chosen for this mission. Her species, the Laraxian, were among the strongest warriors in the galactic collective. Their chitinous exoskeletons could withstand pressures that would crush most species. Their reflexes were legendary. And humans? Humans were fragile, soft-bodied, no natural armor, weak compared to many spacefaring species. But they'd proven themselves useful allies with their strange innovations and unpredictable strategies. A groan from her left caught her attention. Vrisk spun, her dorsal spines flaring instinctively at the sound. "Commander?" It was Reed's voice, weak but alive. She found him trapped beneath a fallen support beam, his face streaked with blood from a gash on his forehead. His breathing was labored, and Vrisk's bioscanner revealed 3 fractured ribs and potentially internal bleeding. "Do not move, Ambassador," she ordered, assessing the beam. It would be heavy, but nothing she couldn't handle. "I will extract you." With a grunt, she positioned herself and lifted the beam. Reed crawled out, wincing with every movement. "Ship status?" he asked through gritted teeth. "Critical. Engines offline. Life support failing." She helped him to his feet. "We must reach the escape pods. Can you walk?" Reed nodded, though his pallor concerned her. So easily damaged, these humans. They made it halfway to the escape bay when another explosion rocked the ship. This time, the deck beneath them buckled. Vrisk's gravitational stabilizers in her boots kept her upright, but Reed was thrown backward, crashing hard against a wall panel that sparked and sizzled on impact. When she reached him, his eyes were closed, and blood trickled from his ear. Her scanner showed a concussion, and his left leg was twisted at an unnatural angle. Definitely broken. "This is unfortunate," she muttered, calculating their odds. The nearest escape pod was still 3 sections away. The human was unconscious and severely injured. By her estimates, they had perhaps 20 minutes before the ship's core went critical. Vrisk considered her options. As a Laraxian commander, her duty was clear: complete the mission at all costs. Ambassador Reed represented a crucial link between the collective and Earth's burgeoning stellar empire. Without him, the peace talks would collapse, and the Mirazil would achieve their goal of fracturing the alliance. She could leave him and alert a retrieval team to his location, if one could reach him in time, or, decision made, Vrisk carefully lifted the human. His body felt unnervingly light in her forearms. Soft, vulnerable. "Your species confounds me, Ambassador," she said to his unconscious form as she moved swiftly toward the escape bay. "So physically inferior, yet somehow you've become indispensable to galactic politics." The ship groaned around them, metal tearing as sections began to decompress. Vrisk increased her pace, cradling Reed's broken body against her armored exoskeleton. "If we survive this," she promised him, "you will explain to me the human concept of punching above one's weight." 3 days stranded on Mirazil territory had taught Vrisk more about human physiology than she'd ever wanted to know. "The fever's getting worse," Reed rasped from his makeshift bed of thermal blankets in the escape pod's tiny cabin. "Without proper antibiotics, I'm not going to last much longer." Vrisk's antennae flattened against her head in frustration. Their distress beacon was active but deliberately set to a low-frequency channel to avoid Mirazil detection. The coordinates she'd managed to transmit to collective command before the ship's destruction would bring help eventually, but eventually might be too late for the human. Your species heals remarkably slowly, she observed, applying another, compressed to his forehead. The escape pod's medical kit was woefully inadequate for human biology. A Luraxian would have begun exoskeleton regeneration by now. Reed's laugh turned into a painful cough. Sorry to disappoint. It is not disappointment, merely an observation. Despite his deteriorating condition, Reed had spent the first day conscious, helping Vrisk set up their defenses and explaining to her how to bind his broken leg with makeshift splints. His knowledge of survival tactics had surprised her. Most diplomats she'd escorted were useless outside their comfortable chambers. "Commander," Reed said suddenly, his eyes clearer than they'd been for hours. "You need to listen carefully." Vrisk moved closer, all four of her arms busy monitoring his vital signs, adjusting the temperature controls, and preparing another dose of the limited painkillers they had. "If I don't make it, you will survive, Ambassador." "If I don't," he insisted, "there's a data crystal in my left boot heel. Emergency protocols. It contains everything the collective needs to know about the Merzeel infiltration of Tannhäuser Station." Vrisk's compound eyes widened. "You knew? About the ambush?" "Suspected. Couldn't risk transmitting too many Merzeel sympathizers in communication channels. This revelation changed everything. If Reed died, the information died with him. The fate of not just the peace conference, but potentially the entire collective human alliance rested on his survival. "I will not let you die," Vrisk declared with newfound determination. Reed smiled weakly. "That's what I like about you Luraxians, so stubborn." That night, as Reed drifted in and out of consciousness, Vrisk made a difficult decision. The escape pod scanner had detected a settlement 15 kilometers northeast, almost certainly a Merzeel outpost. Settlements meant medical facilities. At dawn, she secured Reed to her back using torn strips of the pod's upholstery. His fever burned against her cool exoskeleton. "What are you doing?" he mumbled. "Something potentially foolish," she admitted. "But as you humans say, desperate times. Desperate measures," he finished, his voice barely audible. Vrisk sealed the pod and set off across the rocky terrain, careful to keep her movement smooth. Each jarring step caused Reed to moan, but she had no choice. The settlement was their only hope. By midday, under the punishing twin suns of the Merazil homeworld, even Vrisk's enhanced physiology was being tested. Her water reserves were depleting, rapidly, and the extra weight, light as Reed was compared to a Luraxian, taxed her energy stores. "You can leave me," Reed whispered during one of his lucid moments. "Complete the mission. Get the data back." "Silence," she hissed. "A Luraxian, Commander does not abandon her charge. Is that why you're doing this? Duty?" Vrisk paused, considering. In truth, something had shifted in her assessment of the human. His resilience in the face of what must be excruciating pain. His concern for the mission, even as his body failed him. "Not merely duty," she finally answered, resuming her steady pace across the barren landscape. "You have proven interesting." Reed's weak laugh ghosted across her shoulder plates. High praise from a Luraxian. Indeed. Vrisk's external sensors detected movement on the horizon. "Now be silent. We approach the settlement, and I must focus on keeping us both alive." The Merazil outpost loomed ahead, a collection of angular structures carved into the red cliffs. Vrisk observed from behind a rocky outcropping, her compound eyes taking in every detail. 6 guards patrolled the perimeter, armed with pulse rifles. Security drones hovered above, their sensors sweeping in predictable patterns. "I count 3 potential entry points," she murmured to Reed, who was propped against the rock beside her. His condition had stabilized somewhat since she'd administered the last of their painkillers, but his skin remained alarmingly pale by human standards. "Remember," Reed said, his voice barely above a whisper, "we need their comm array. If we can't call for extraction, getting medical supplies won't matter." Vrisk's mandibles clicked in irritation. "I am aware, Ambassador, but your immediate survival takes precedence." "The mission," We'll fail if you die, she finished firmly. Now conserve your strength. As darkness fell, Vrisk implemented her plan. She had removed key components from the escape pod before abandoning it, including its emergency beacon. Reprogramming it had been Reed's idea. The humans' knowledge of communication protocols had proven unexpectedly valuable. She activated the beacon and hurled it far to the west of their position. Within minutes, 2 of the perimeter guards and a security drone moved to investigate the sudden signal. Phase 1 complete, she noted with satisfaction. Told you it would work, Reed murmured. Mirazil are nothing if not predictable. Your confidence is noted. Vrisk carefully lifted him again. Now we move. Using the natural camouflage abilities of her species, her exoskeleton shifting to match the reddish terrain, Vrisk carried Reed toward the settlement's eastern entrance. The remaining guards were focused outward, not expecting an infiltration from someone already on the planet's surface. They slipped inside during a patrol gap, Reed directing her with hand signals when pain prevented him from speaking. His knowledge of Mirazil base layouts, apparently standard across their territory, guided them toward the medical facility. Left. At the next junction, he breathed against her shoulder. Should be. Minimal personnel. Night cycle. The medical bay was exactly where Reed had predicted. Vrisk secured the door behind them and quickly assessed the supplies. Most were labeled in Mirazil script, incomprehensible to her. The blue vials, Reed pointed weakly. Broad-spectrum antibiotics, compatible with human physiology. Vrisk's antennae twitched in surprise. How do you know this? A ghost of a smile crossed Reed's face. Not my first rodeo with Mirazil medicine. As she administered the antibiotics, Vrisk realized she had severely underestimated this human. Not just his physical endurance, but his knowledge base and strategic thinking. The diplomatic corps had clearly sent their best. We have perhaps 20 minutes before someone checks this facility, she said, gathering additional supplies into a medical pack. Can you walk at all? Reed tested his weight on his good leg, grimacing. With support, yes, not fast, though. Fast is less important than silent, Vrisk replied, wrapping one arm around his waist while keeping her other 3 limbs free for defense or balance. They had almost reached the communications center when the alarm sounded. The beacon, Reed realized. They found it was a decoy. Vrisk calculated rapidly. New plan. We barricade ourselves in the comm center. Send your data and our coordinates to the collective. Defend until extraction. Reed nodded grimly. Like, you said desperate measures. They had just reached the communications hub when 3 Mirazil soldiers appeared at the corridor's end. Without hesitation, Vrisk shoved Reed through the doorway and turned to face the threat. Her natural weapons, retractable bone spurs in her forearms, extending with a soft click. Seal the door, she ordered. Complete the transmission. I will handle this. Before Reed could protest, she launched herself at the Mirazil, her exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh lights as she became a blur of lethal precision. Inside the comm center, Reed dragged himself to the console, his training taking over despite the pain. His fingers flew across the unfamiliar controls, adapting to the Mirazil interface. Outside, he could hear the sounds of combat, the distinctive buzz of pulse weapons, the crack of exoskeleton against armor, Vrisk's battle cries in her native tongue. As the transmission completed, the door burst inward. Vrisk stumbled through, ichor leaking from a wound in her side but still standing. It is done? She demanded. Reed nodded. Help is coming. 30 minutes, max. Good. Vrisk sealed the damaged door as best she could. Because I estimate we have approximately 35 minutes of trouble headed our way. You are continuing to bleed, Reed observed, his voice stronger now that the antibiotics had taken effect. He sat propped against the communications console, methodically checking the energy levels on a Mirazil pulse pistol he'd taken from the weapons locker. Vrisk dismissed his concern with a wave of her upper right arm. Lyraxian regeneration is already addressing the wound. Your condition remains more precarious. But Reed wasn't deterred. Let me see it. After a moment's hesitation, Vrisk turned to reveal the gash where a Morazil blade had found a seam in her exoskeleton. The ichor, a bluish fluid that served as Laraxian blood, had slowed to a trickle, but the wound was substantial. Without comment, Reed tore a strip from his already ragged uniform shirt and, using his teeth in good hand, fashioned a tight binding. "This helps the regeneration process," he explained, securing the makeshift bandage. "Keeps the exoskeletal edges aligned. Standard field procedure for Laraxian injuries." Vrisk's antennae twitched in surprise. "You are trained in xenophysiology?" "All Earth Force diplomatic security undergoes basic training for allied species emergency care." Reed finished the bandage with a practiced knot. "Hold still." It was Vrisk's turn to reassess the human before her. "You are not merely a diplomat, are you, Ambassador Reed?" His eyes met hers, steady and unapologetic. "My diplomatic credentials are authentic. The rest is supplementary training. Intelligence operative." It made sense now. His survival skills, his knowledge of Morazil bases, his suspicions about the ambush. Earth was playing a deeper game than the collective realized. A heavy thud against the barricaded door interrupted their exchange. "They're using a sonic battering ram," Reed identified the sound immediately. 10 minutes tops before they're through. Vrisk moved quickly to the rear of the communications hub, removing a ventilation panel. "This shaft leads to the landing bay according to the schematics you accessed. If we..." "No." Reed's voice was calm but firm. "You go. I'll hold them here." "Unacceptable. My mission is to..." "Your mission," Reed cut in, "is to ensure the data reaches the collective. I've transmitted it, but we both know transmissions can be intercepted or blocked. You need to physically deliver the crystal as backup." Vrisk's mandibles clicked rapidly in agitation. "And leave you to the Morazil? They do not take prisoners, Ambassador." Reed's smile was grim. "I'm aware. But I can't move fast enough for both of us to escape. Tactically, this is sound." Another crash against the door. The barricade shifted slightly. "I will not abandon you," Vrisk insisted. "The concepts of honor and duty deeply ingrained in Laraxian culture. It violates every principle of not abandonment, strategic withdrawal." Reed checked the pistol's charge once more. "Besides, the collective needs to know what you've learned about humans." "And what have I learned?" she demanded. Reed's eyes held a fierce light. "That we're a lot tougher than you thought." The truth of his words struck Vrisk with unexpected force. Throughout their ordeal, she had continually revised her assessment of human resilience. What they lacked in natural armor, they compensated for in sheer determination and adaptability. The door buckled inward another few centimeters. Decision time. Vrisk moved swiftly across the room and, before Reed could protest, lifted him with all four arms. "What are you doing?" he demanded. "Strategic withdrawal," she replied, using his own terminology. But together, she maneuvered them both into the ventilation shaft, moving as quickly as she could while protecting Reed's injured body from the sharp edges of the metal conduit. "This is illogical," Reed hissed as they crawled through the darkness. "You're compromising the mission." "I am completing it as I see fit," Vrisk responded. "The Laraxian Diplomatic Corps did not assign me to this mission because I abandon allies." They emerged into a maintenance tunnel that ran parallel to the landing bay. Vrisk could smell the distinctive odor of ship fuel and hear the hum of engines. Extraction. "Team is 3 minutes out," Reed whispered, checking a small device strapped to his wrist that Vrisk had not noticed before. More supplementary equipment, apparently. "Can you create a diversion?" Vrisk asked. Reed produced a small object from a hidden pocket. "Sonic detonator. Non-lethal but extremely disorienting to Morazil sensory organs. It'll buy us about 40 seconds. Their eyes met in the dim light of the tunnel, a moment of perfect understanding passing between two very different beings, united by circumstance and growing mutual respect. "On my mark," Vrisk said. The extraction ship, a sleek, collective stealth cruiser, hovered just beyond the settlement's defensive perimeter, cloaking technology keeping it invisible to Morazil sensors. Vrisk and Reed watched from their hiding place among cargo containers in the landing bay, waiting for the perfect moment. 20 seconds until they breach the security lockdown we triggered, Reed murmured, reading data from his wrist device. The sonic detonator had bought them enough time to reach the bay and implement the next phase of their escape plan, flooding the settlement systems with contradictory security alerts. Vrisk's compound eyes constantly scanned for threats while her other senses monitored Reed's condition. The antibiotics had stabilized him, but he needed proper medical attention soon. His broken leg was crudely splinted with materials they'd scavenged, and though he hadn't complained, she could smell the distinct odor that indicated human pain responses were active. "The extraction team is signaling," she said, her antennae detecting the encrypted burst transmission. "They will create a diversion at the north perimeter, drawing away the defense systems. We must reach these coordinates." She showed Reed the landing zone data on her ARM computer. Reed nodded grimly. 500 meters. Open ground for the last 100. "Can you manage it?" His laugh was soft and pained. "Do I have a choice? I could carry you," Vrisk offered, not for the first time. "And reduce our defensive capabilities by 75%? Reed shook his head. "I'll manage." The perimeter alarm suddenly blared to life. Their diversion was working. Murazil, security forces rushed toward the northern section, where the extraction team had triggered sensor ghosts that mimicked a full-scale assault. "Now," Vrisk said, helping Reed to his feet. They moved through the shadows of the landing bay, using the chaos to their advantage. Reed leaned heavily on Vrisk, but maintained a pace that impressed her. With each passing hour, her respect for human endurance grew. They had covered perhaps 300 meters when Reed stumbled, a sharp intake of breath signaling that something was wrong. Vrisk caught him before he fell. "The bone has shifted," she observed, her senses detecting the change in his injury. "You cannot continue like this." "Have to," Reed insisted, face pale with pain. "Just give me a second." But they didn't have seconds to spare. In the distance, Vrisk could see Murazil troops beginning to realize they'd been deceived. Soon they would regroup and sweep the area. Without further discussion, she lifted Reed into her forearms. This time he didn't protest. "Direct me," she said, increasing her pace to a swift lope that ate up the distance. "Your eyes are better positioned to watch our rear." As they crossed the final stretch of open ground, a pulse blast struck the earth. Beside them, Vrisk zigzagged, her powerful legs carrying them in an unpredictable pattern that made targeting difficult. "3 Murazil, 4 o'clock, Reed warned, firing back with his stolen pistol. His aim was remarkable despite the jostling motion of Vrisk's run. Another blast, closer this time. Vrisk felt the heat of it against her exoskeleton. "Almost there," she encouraged, seeing the shimmer in the air that indicated their extraction point. The stealth cruiser began to decloak, its loading ramp descending even before it fully materialized. Collective soldiers provided covering fire, as Vrisk made the final sprint. Just as they reached the ramp, a pulse blast caught Vrisk in the back. Her exoskeleton absorbed most of the impact, but the force sent both of them tumbling onto the ramp. Reed cried out as his broken leg took the brunt of the fall. Vrisk recovered instantly, shielding Reed's body with her own as she dragged them both fully inside. The ramp closed, and the ship rocketed upward. Medical personnel, a mix of species, including a human doctor, rushed forward. As they loaded Reed onto a stretcher, he grabbed Vrisk's forearm with surprising strength. "The data crystal," he reminded her, voice weak but insistent. Vrisk carefully removed it from his boot heel. "I will deliver it personally to the collective council." Reed nodded, the tension finally leaving his body as the medical team administered proper painkillers. As they wheeled him away, Vrisk realized something had fundamentally changed in her understanding of not just this human, but his entire species. The ship's captain, a tall Meridian with silver-scaled skin, approached. "Commander Katal, the Council is most relieved at your survival, and impressed that you managed to bring the ambassador out alive." Vrisk's antennae dipped in acknowledgement, but her thoughts were elsewhere. "Is something troubling you, Commander?" the captain inquired. "I have spent my career believing that physical strength determines survival capability," Vrisk said slowly. that exoskeletons and natural armor were superior to soft tissue and fragile bones. And now? Vrisk looked toward the medical bay where Reed was being treated. Now I understand that strength takes many forms, and some of the strongest beings may be those who appear at first glance to be the most fragile. The collective council chamber hummed with urgent conversations as delegates from 27 species debated the implications of the data Reed had secured. Vrisk stood at attention beside the human's medical pod, her posture formal, but her compound eyes fixed on his vital signs. 3 standard days had passed since their extraction. Reed's broken leg had been properly set and accelerated healing protocols initiated, but human biology was frustratingly slow to respond, even with advanced medical intervention. "The Muraziel ambassador demands to speak with you," said Counselor Ilara, a luminescent Phloxian whose body pulsed with agitation. "He claims your actions constitute an act of war against a sovereign planet. My actions were in response to an unprovoked attack on a diplomatic vessel in neutral space," Vrisk replied evenly. "And the data Ambassador Reed recovered proves Muraziel infiltration at the highest levels of Tannhäuser Station security." "Yes, the Council has verified the information." Ilara's light patterns shifted to indicate approval. "Quite remarkable that a human managed to collect such detailed intelligence without detection." Vrisk's antennae twitched slightly, the Lyraxian equivalent of a smile. "Ambassador Reed has proven exceptional." The medical pod status changed, drawing Vrisk's attention. Reed was waking up. "Excuse me, Counselor. My duty to the ambassador continues until he is fully recovered." As Ilara drifted away, Vrisk moved closer to the pod. The transparent cover slid back, revealing Reed's face. The color had returned to his skin, and his eyes, when they opened, were clear and alert. "Commander," he greeted her, voice stronger than she'd heard it since before the ambush. "Seems we made it after all." "Indeed. The data crystal has already resulted in 17 arrests among Tannhäuser Station personnel. The Muraziel plot has been exposed." Reed attempted to sit up, wincing slightly. "And the peace conference?" "Rescheduled for next month, with enhanced security protocols that I personally designed." Vrisk helped adjust his position. "The human delegation has requested that you continue as lead ambassador once you are recovered." His eyebrows rose in surprise. "Even though my cover is blown, the Muraziel know I'm more than a diplomat now." "Perhaps that is precisely why you were chosen," Vrisk suggested. "Your actions have elevated the standing of humans within the collective. Many who dismissed your species as physically inferior are reassessing their positions." Reed studied her with curious intensity. "And you, Commander? Have you reassessed your position?" Vrisk considered her answer carefully. In Lyraxian culture, admitting a change in perspective was not taken lightly. "I have served as diplomatic security for 15 stellar cycles," she finally said. "In that time I have escorted Meridians with their poisonous scales, Thalaxians with their regenerative abilities, even a Viridian ambassador whose silicon-based body could withstand the vacuum of space. I respected them all for their natural defenses." She paused, her forearms settled in the formal position of sincere address. "But I have never before carried an injured ally across hostile territory, watched them strategize while in excruciating pain, or witnessed them continue to fight when their physiology should have rendered them unconscious. You lack natural armor, Ambassador Reed, but you possess something equally valuable." "And what's that?" he asked. "Adaptability, determination, the capacity to continue functioning beyond your physical limitations. These are strengths my species, for all our armored exoskeletons, sometimes lack." Reed smiled slowly. "High praise from a Lyraxian commander." "Earned praise," she corrected. "The Council has acknowledged this as well. They have proposed a new joint security protocol, Lyraxian and human teams working in tandem, combining our physical capabilities with your unpredictability. And you've been volunteered to oversee this program," Reed guessed. Vrisk's antennae twitched again. "With you as my counterpart, should you accept?" Before Reed could respond, the chamber doors slid open and the full collective delegation entered, representatives of all 27 member species arranged in order of their joining. Last in line came 3 additional humans in Earth Force diplomatic uniforms. The council elder, an ancient meridian whose scales had faded to white with age, stepped forward. Ambassador Reed, Commander Catal. The collective wishes to formally recognize your extraordinary service. Your actions have not only exposed a plot that threatened galactic stability, but have also demonstrated the strength that comes from cooperation between our species. The elder turned to Vrisk, her compound eyes reflecting in his silvery scales. Commander, you were assigned to protect a being you believed inferior. Instead, you discovered a worthy ally. What wisdom do you bring from this experience that the collective should hear? Vrisk straightened to her full height, all forearms extended in the formal gesture of profound truth. I have learned that we must never mistake difference for weakness, that physical fragility may conceal depths of strength we cannot see, and that sometimes the most powerful act is not to fight alone, but to carry each other through the battle. The chamber fell silent, every species contemplating her words according to their own customs. Reed's eyes met hers across the distance, and in that moment a perfect understanding passed between them. 2 beings from worlds apart who had found unexpected strength in each other. The elder raised her ancient hands. Let it be recorded in the histories of the collective. On this day a new chapter begins, one written together by those who once thought themselves strong and those they once believed fragile. Vrisk moved to stand beside Reed's medical pod as the assembly erupted in the varied sounds of approval from 27 species. Her exoskeleton gleamed under the chamber lights, and beside her Reed stood as straight as his healing body allowed. Ready for what comes next, Commander? He asked quietly. Vrisk's antennae dipped forward in affirmation. If it involves carrying you out of battle again, Ambassador, perhaps we could discuss some dietary supplements to reduce your weight. Reed's laughter echoed through the chamber, a sound that Vrisk, against all her training and instinct, found herself hoping to hear for many missions to come.